Good evening. This is the December 11th, 2018 Planning Board meeting. If we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And this is being brought to you by Area 58 Community Access Media, Channel 15. And I have another statement to read. This statement is being read into the record to advise that Planning Board member Jim Hoffman will be remotely participating in this meeting. And Jim is sitting right here next to me. Jim, are you with us?
I'm with everybody.
Okay, great. Can you hear us okay? Okay, great, thank you. All right, first we have a sign permit tonight, Route 58 and South Meadow Road. It's for a drop zone.
Mr. Chairman, the board requested that the applicant appear before the board to answer some questions. The applicant has asked for another continuance. In the last instance, at our last meeting, he asked for a continuance because he was under the weather, and it seems he has not recovered from that. So if we could table that or continue that to our next meeting on January 8th, I have an assurance that the gentleman will be present for that meeting.
Okay, that's fine. We don't need to vote on that. He's just going to stop by. All right, so we'll move on to approval not required plans. And we have 3 of them. And see, the first one, they're all for Borrego Solar Systems. And the first one is on Federal Road, and it's Assessors Map 131, Lot 2A.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, you have a rolled up copy of that map in front of you. They may be doubled up, and I apologize for that, but please do feel comfortable to share. I may have dropped it from my memory, but we're really just combining Phase 1 and Phase 2 lot into one lot, correct?
That's right. For the record, Sarah Stearns from Beals & Thomas. This is a similar Form A plan to what we've done on other Borrego 80 Makepeace projects where we've carved out a lot around the solar array. And in this case, Stephen's correct, this would combine Phase 1 and Phase 2.
Okay. And see, what's the title of this? Is this, see, this is the one. See, we have 3 of them here. So this says 276 Federal Road, Carver. Oh, no, I just have one.
This is map 131-2-1 and 132.
We have A1 and then A2 underneath.
Oh, okay. We do. And so the lot obviously has enough acreage, and it also has the. Does it have frontage on the road?
Yes.
Okay. See, the first one, we're going to come up with meets and bounds for the. See, it says Lot A1, and it shows lines, but it doesn't.
So I have to ask the PLS who did this. I think on the form that was attached to that information was included.
Okay.
I'd have to check with Stephen on the form.
Obviously, that has to be added to, before it goes to the Registry of Deeds.
Right. Yep. Do you have the forms?
So we have the lot here, but it has no bearings or distances on it yet.
Okay, I can check on that with the PLS. I'll have to ask them.
All right, so,
So this is just a standard Form A? combining the two lots?
Well, actually, it's, it looks like they've carved carved a lot within, you have Lot A2, which is the big lot.
Yep.
And then you've carved out a Lot A1. That's supposed to go around the solar array.
Okay.
And so the frontage is on this gravel road. Is that where the frontage comes from?
Which is along Federal.
Is along Federal.
Yep.
For Lot A2. Oh, but they're gonna be combined, it's carved out, but it's gonna be combined.
Right, so it's, I believe, Phase 1 and Phase 2 gets combined into this Lot A2. And then there's a remaining parcel, what's called A3, which is a non-buildable lot.
So Lot A1 is gonna be combined with Lot A2, is that what you're saying? Okay.
Right.
So did Lot A1 exist before, or?
Lot
confused.
A1 is the existing solar lot.
Oh, okay.
Oops. So if you
So-
look at A2 on the A&R 2 plan or the locus map. Future lot is,
Oh, okay.
I think that is a little bit clearer. This site is so large that we had to put it on 2 sheets.
Okay.
So if you look at the locus map that's on here, the 800 scale, that shows it a lot more clearly what the proposed lot is to become.
Oh, so that's why he didn't put meets and bounds around the lot, because actually that's gonna be part of
It's-
Lot A2 anyway.
It's absorbing it.
Yeah,
Right.
okay,
Right.
all right. I mean, as long as that's accepted by the, so originally that must have had meets and bounds around it
Correct.
when you first carved it
Right,
out.
because Lot A1 was filed as a Form A lot after Phase 1 solar was completed.
Okay,
So that's the lot of record, and now this would, I mean, I say absorb, I don't know what the technical term is for that, but that's the, I think, yeah, looking at that locus map kind of
it
shows it.
just becomes combined with,
Exactly.
yeah, okay. Okay. And there was a note on this that says that's what, I don't see a note here saying that that's what happened, but am I missing?
So the notes are on the second sheet.
Oh, okay, so these 2 sheets are combined, okay.
Sheets are combined because we couldn't.
I'm sorry.
So all of the notes and the zoning information
Okay.
are on,
It's to be, okay,
sheet 2. Lot 1 is to be reconfigured to form Lot A1, Lot A1 is to be reconfigured to form Lot A2. Parcel A3 is not to be considered a building lot.
okay,
That was the remaining land.
okay.
And then the zoning table is in the lower left corner of page 2, A&R-2. It's not as convenient on one page, I know.
This is Sarah Hammond, all 3 of them.
Yeah, so the Lot A1 was carved out according to the note in February 2014, which makes sense because that was around the time that the Phase 1 for the solar was,
Okay. We've got monumentation. So this seems fine with me. So this is, so this is it, so this is all 3 This is map 131, 2A, lot, or do we
This
have,
is map 131, lot 2A,
okay,
related to the 276 Federal Road Solar Project.
okay.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to endorse the Borrego Solar Federal Systems Federal Road Assessors Map 131, Lot 2A.
Wait, one question. Why do you want to combine them? Why not just leave them separate?
First, just to make it clear that there's no internal setbacks, right? If there was the existing lot line, you'd have 400 feet of space in between phase 1 and phase 2. That would, and that's all the way up and around it, so that would be a pretty poor use of space. So by combining it, the footprint, the total footprint can be minimized.
Okay,
We'll have to ask for a variance from setbacks from internal lot lines.
okay.
So less trees to be cut down if you had to go by the larger
So that would
setbacks.
spread everything
Yeah,
out by
yeah.
hundreds of feet.
Yeah,
Yeah, during the site walk, we talked about that lobe, that flame of the Zippo type thing. All that gets pushed south. And we have a big rectangle. Your total acreage, phase 1 plus phase 2, increases considerably.
Okay.
so we have a motion before us, so
I'll second it.
and we have a second. And so Jim can vote on this, right? So we have a motion, a second. Further discussion? Those in favor, say aye. Aye. And Jim, those against?
Forgive me, Mr. Chairman, I just want to interject. In an instance where we have a quorum and a remote participation, we have to have a roll call vote.
That's
Oh,
true.
okay. Okay, we'll start with Will.
Will, aye.
Jen?
Jen, I.
Bruce? Aye. Kevin?
Aye.
And Jim? Aye. Okay, thank you. All right, so that takes care of that first. Do we have, the next is Wareham Street. It's Assessors Map 134, Lot 4-2. Do we have that plan?
You do, Mr. Chair. It's in your packet or in your desk as 0 Hammond Street. Endearingly known also as.
Okay, Wareham Street. Same type scenario for the Hammond Street Solar, carving out a smaller piece of the.
Oh, is that it right there? Oh, thank you. So, okay, 0 Hammond Street. So we have lot 2-1. And the remaining lot. Okay, so you just carved out a piece. Okay, I see that. And it does have frontage on Hammond Street and Federal, on Hammond Street. All right. I think this is pretty simple. It's just lot 2A is coming out of the remaining land and the remaining land of 80 Makepeace.
So this doesn't combine property, so why do you want to do this one?
Similar reason. It's, as Sarah said, it's a 100-plus acre greater parcel. And in order just to make taxing and all that type of stuff a little bit cleaner, that will be the parcel. That is basically the solar parcel, defined by the limit of the solar plus the 200-foot setback, and then, straightening out some of the corners and
Okay.
edges.
I'll make a motion to endorse the Borrego Solar Systems, Inc. for Assessors Map 134, Lot 4-2, as presented in the map.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second that.
Have a motion and a second. All right, so we'll have another roll call. Further discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call. Will?
Will, aye.
Jen?
Jen, I.
Bruce, aye.
Kevin, aye.
Okay, and Jim?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so that was unanimous. All right, next is Borrego Solar Systems for a property located off of Old Charlotte Furnace Road.
Yes, this one is a little bit different. We're actually going to request to continue this to your next hearing. This is a property in Wareham that has a piece of the lot in Carver, so the Form A would actually be signed by the Wareham Planning Board as well as the Carver. We have 2 blocks, but we're
Okay.
still working that out. We don't have the Mylar with us. We're still working out with Wareham Planning Board,
Okay.
so we'd like to request to continue that to the
All
next
right.
hearing.
Sure. And we don't have to vote on that because,
No.
All right, so that takes care of those 3 items. And the next is, next on our agenda is Priolo Plymouth Street Realty, 0 Plymouth Street, Carver, Mass. Assessors map 18, lot 8. It's a 32-unit townhouse development.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'm going to excuse myself or I'm a direct abutter, please.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, good evening. So where are we now with this? If you could give us your name and address, please, just for the record.
Glenn Priolo, 233 Pembroke Street, Kingston. It's Plymouth Street is the property, 0 Plymouth Street.
So I have a memorandum here. It says that Fuss & O'Neill has revised the stormwater management design for the project. It says the applicant has addressed our technical comments from our prior reviews. But they do have, what, 3 comments here, Stephen?
They do, Mr. Chair, and offhand, what Fuss & O'Neill was recommending was that if it pleases the board, that it's okay to go ahead and approve this with conditions. As we speak, I am pulling up a draft decision with conditions for the board to consider.
Okay,
There are 18 conditions, and Glenn, if I'm not mistaken, I think I only saw the one issue for the one waiver for the 40-foot buffer.
The 40-foot buffer, and we added screening along all those properties where we were into the 40 feet, a dense screen, you know.
okay.
And the 40-foot buffer, like I said, we meet all the setbacks off the property line with the buildings. It's just grading into the buffer as we work. Once we replant it, like I say, the screening will be as thick as the woods that are there now, you know.
Okay,
And it's still quite a setback from the other properties abutting it, you know.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, on the screen over my shoulder is a copy of the draft decision as it appears with these conditions. How would you like for me to present them to the board? I can read them to you, or I can take time and scroll through slowly, and then capture any additional thoughts that the planning board may have.
if you could read it to us quickly. This encompasses the comments made by Fuss & O'Neill?
It does, yes.
Okay.
Fran, can you hear me back there? Is it picking up the sound of my voice? Yes, okay. Condition 1, prior to the issuance of a building permit, a true copy of the recorded decision as registered at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds shall be submitted to the board. The project must be constructed as approved in the site plan. Any revisions will require approval from the board as modification to this decision. The applicant is responsible for the proper operation, maintenance of the site, During the construction, sedimentation and soil erosion controls shall be installed, repaired and supplemented as needed. Dust control is required during the construction, and the roadway apron is to be kept swept and clear of any dust, dirt, or debris. Condition 4, any outstanding balance of the review and inspections deposit account shall be paid prior to the issuance of a certificate of use and occupancy. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, all easements, deed restrictions, and conveyances, if any, as submitted to the planning board, shall be executed and recorded at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds, and shall be resubmitted or submitted to the Carver Planning Department. As soon as is practically possible, the applicant will provide the planning board with a statement estimating the cost of construction for the new residential road and associated drainage. Estimated costs will determine the value of covenants consistent with the Town of Carver rules, regulations, and bylaws. All ways, roads, drainage facilities, water facilities, and other utilities within the development site shall remain private, and any maintenance thereof, snow plowing, and any other associated costs shall be the responsibility of the applicant or its successor in interest with respect to same, until said time if the planning of the Town of Carver accepts all responsibilities of said roadway and associated easements. A copy of any change in ownership of said property and responsibility of said development shall be filed with the town clerk within 30 days of recording said instrument. During construction, all local, state, and federal laws shall be followed. There shall be no burying of stumps anywhere on the approved development site. The emergency access road will be locked and used only by Town of Carver emergency vehicles if needed. Best efforts shall be made by applicant and successive owner to maintain a buffer between adjacent properties and the project site. Landscaping and screening must be maintained in areas where the buffer is determined to be less than 40 feet. Condition 13, the point at which the emergency access road joins Plymouth Street and the new residential road shall comply with fire department regulations and all-weather surface that is aesthetically consistent with the characteristic of the rest of the development. The applicant and successive owners shall ensure the intent of inclusionary zoning provisions is upheld pursuant to Section 3000, inclusionary zoning, found in the Town of Carver bylaws, zoning bylaws. Particular care shall be exercised to ensure compliance with Sections 3040, design and construction, 3045, habitable space requirements, and 3087, segmentation. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant must demonstrate an interconnected agreement is reached with North Carver Water District, and Town of Carver water services are established at the project site in accordance with Massachusetts DEP requirements. The applicant shall record open space restrictions at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds and provide documentation to the planning board. Condition 17, appropriate traffic and directional signs shall be installed at all traffic circles and roadways. And lastly, Mr. Chairman, the applicant must monitor the outfall pipe located at the property line of the abutting property, map number 18, lot 8D, in order to make certain that concentrated flows do not discharge to the abutting property. Any erosion or impacts to abutters must be remediated immediately. And as I mentioned, the only waiver being sought for is the planning board to approve the request to allow less than 40-foot buffer as indicated on the site plan. However, adequate screening with natural vegetation and landscaping must be maintained in all areas where the 40-foot buffer is waived. That concludes the conditions.
Okay.
With regard to the regulatory departments that reviewed this during the technical review and the Fuss and O'Neill memo, which is in front of you.
Okay. And so this will be drafted up and we'll sign this at our next meeting if we decide to approve this project tonight?
In fact, sir, I have the system set up so that if you have any other conditions, I can add them in real time. I can hit print right now, and by the end of this meeting, I can run downstairs for your signatures.
Okay. I think that's pretty thorough.
I try.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments about the conditions? Jen? Do you have
No.
Okay. Okay. All right. Jim, do you have any comments that you'd like to make? Did you hear that?
Yeah, no, I heard it. I think that covers everything.
Okay.
Much well.
All right. So I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve Priolo Plymouth Street Realty, 0 Plymouth Street, Carver, Mass. Townhouse development with those conditions.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll second that.
So you have a motion and a second. See, we have to have a roll call vote with this. So Jen?
Jen, I.
Bruce, aye.
Kevin, aye.
And Jim?
Jim, aye.
Aye, okay. So that's, so you're all set.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it, guys.
Mr. Chairman, Karen is voting on this as it's a special permit, and Will has recused himself.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry. Sorry to
aye.
miss you.
It's okay.
Sorry, yeah, that's right, Will isn't, I see Will, but I always think that he's over here to my right. He's in front of me. All right, so we're all set. So we're gonna sign this tonight. So we'll have this signed for you tonight.
Great.
So whenever you need to pick it up, and good luck with the project, and
Appreciate it.
I hope things work out well.
Sure will. Thank
Okay.
you.
So next, we have a few continued public hearings. So the first public hearing we have tonight, continuance, is on the application of DPH Realty Trust requesting a special permit and site plan review and definitive subdivision pursuant to sections 2230 and 3900 of the Carver zoning bylaw for a property located on 0 South Meadow Road on Assessors Map 112, Parcel 1-5. And it's in Carver, Mass. to construct a 54-unit pocket neighborhood-style townhouse development. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Again.
My name's Ed Angley. Sarah
Stearns
Stearns.
from Beals and Thomas. So we're back with our continued hearing for Patriot Pines 2, take 2. Since we last met, we have received a supplemental response to our response of the peer review comments. We have talked with Sean Martin a couple of times as we've gone through his final edits. I think that we have accomplished what Fuss and O'Neill and Beals and Thomas and the applicant have looked to do. So we have nothing further to add in terms of any changes or additions besides the plans and the supplemental stormwater report and response letter that was submitted last week to the board, to the planning department.
Stephen, do you have anything to add to this?
The planning staff with the other regulatory departments conducted a technical review, and in front of you is the final closeout memo from Fuss and O'Neill with regard to the engineering review. There is a request for several waivers. Let's see, looks like 8 total, and then additional waivers for the site layout and design. I do have, as with the last applicant, a draft decision prepared in case the board's will is to approve this evening, as well as some draft conditions. We've received memos from all of the regulatory departments, including Concom and the fire department, and there appears to be no objection to the approval.
Okay. Could we just go through the waivers, if you could, please?
Yes.
Just so we
Sarah,
know.
do you have a copy of the Fuss memo?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think I'm going to read from the, I have it listed in our response letter, so I can just kind of go through that. The waivers that we were requesting, 7 of the 8 waivers are under the subdivision rules and regulations. And again, just to remind the board, this is a townhouse project that wouldn't typically necessarily fall under all of the design requirements for a subdivision road, but because we are subject to the subdivision rules and regulations for creating the lots for the wells that we need for water supply, we've had to kind of work around some of these. And again, we anticipate this to be a private road, not a public way. So, again, working with the Carver Fire Department and Fuss and O'Neill, we think that what we're asking for is appropriate for this type of project. So the first one is a waiver from the subdivision regulations, section 7.2.1, which is for the waiving of a requirement of a driveway leveling area of 25 feet. Fuss and O'Neill has deferred to Carver Fire Department. We've talked with Carver Fire, and they are okay with it. The next one is also section 7.2.1, a waiver from the requirement for driveway centerline radii of 100 feet or greater. Fuss and O'Neill says that we do not have objections to this waiver request based on the responses provided to the applicant's engineer by the Carver Fire Department. Most of these were weighed in, and we've discussed this back and forth.
So these were the cul-de-sacs? Is that what we're
It's
talking
related
about?
to the driveways.
Oh, just the driveways.
Driveways to the sort of clusters or
Oh, okay.
pocket neighborhoods, as we are
Okay.
calling them.
Okay,
Because the driveways are pretty short. It's not a typical single-family home driveway where it's longer that's coming out to a subdivision roadway. So they're all pretty small.
okay.
The next is section 7.3.2G, to request to waive the requirement for the edge of pavement at intersections to have a minimum radius of 30 feet. This is related to the intersection of the proposed Fairway Lane and South Meadow Road. And we have designed it based on input from Ron Mueller, who is the traffic engineer on the project. Fuss and O'Neill said if the turning movement analysis shows the Carver Fire Department's trucks can make the turn, then we don't have objections to this request. We have talked to Carver Fire about this, but we can revisit it with them to confirm. And if not, we can certainly commit to widening that radius appropriately to fit whatever. We did talk to Carver Fire about getting a turning radius. They don't have a stock truck size that they just hand out. So we just ran it using auto turn, using the largest vehicle that we could come up with. So we feel confident, but again, if it's more comfortable to be conditioned that we would continue to work with Carver Fire, we're happy to do that too.
So you want to do this just to make the entranceway smaller?
Honestly, we were just following the lead of our traffic engineer.
Okay.
So I'd have to go back to his report to see what the rationale was. But again, we don't see that there's any issue with that in terms of a large truck.
Well, long as Fuss and O'Neill,
Yeah.
agrees with that, and the
Right.
Carver Fire Department, so they get the vehicles in and out, that's
Yeah,
that's
he
our
just
main
sort of
concern.
deferred to Carver Fire, so,
Okay.
which we're fine with. We're happy to do that as well.
Okay.
The next is section 7.3.2 HI, a waiver for minor streets to have the minimum centerline radius of 150 feet. Fuss and O'Neill's comment was the design will provide adequate emergency response access. We do not have any objections to this waiver request. The next is section 7.3.6B, waiver for the requirement for dead-end streets to have a maximum of 600 feet. Fuss and O'Neill defers to the board based on input from Carver Fire. This was specifically addressed with Carver Fire at the very beginning of this process because we knew, given the narrow and long nature of the site, we were going to need a really long road. And Carver Fire's input was, as long as we have the emergency access off of Wade Street, they are fine with it.
Okay. So we went from 600 to,
It's close to 1,800, I believe, yeah.
That's the road, but with emergency access, you'd cut it in
half.
half.
And the emergency access is placed almost directly at the center of it, so really each part of the road was about 600 feet. So
Okay.
the second half is a little bit shorter, but they were
Mr.
happy with the location of it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may contribute, this is actually similar to what we had seen in the last project's design that the board just approved. That road was also longer than 600 feet. They worked with the fire department to identify a proper place for the emergency access road, and the condition was that the road will in perpetuity remain private as a result.
And the reason we limit, well, in our bylaws, we limit it to 600 feet is just for fire and emergency vehicle, but by having an access road in the middle in this particular thing, that gives a whole different slant to the thing, so.
That's correct.
Makes it more allowable.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right. The next is section 7.3.6C. Waiver request from the requirement for cul-de-sac dimensional standards. So this is the traffic circle or cul-de-sac at the end of the project. And Fuss and O'Neill's comment was the dead end of Fairway Drive will function as a traffic circle and not a cul-de-sac based upon specific design of the townhouse development, and that the proposed layout will provide the same functional requirements of the town standards. We do not have objections to this request. So it's actually bigger than the design standard for a cul-de-sac, which, just as an aside, Carver Fire was more than happy with. So,
Big is better.
yes, so that was good. And then 7.3.8, a requested waiver for the requirement of curbing on both sides of the road for the easement road. And that is the first kind of loop road. And Fuss and O'Neill has no technical issues with the current curbing design.
Okay.
So, the only other waiver request that we added as part of our revised package was related to the zoning bylaw as opposed to the subdivision rules and regs. And that is specific to the 40-foot buffer area between dwellings once the parcels for the wells are placed on top of this single parcel. So effectively, we're adding lot lines for the wells, and we weren't really sure legally if we needed to ask for that waiver, but just out of an abundance of caution, so we didn't have buildings that were set back improperly from those parcel lines, we added that to our list.
Okay.
So that's really the only other thing that was different from our original package.
Okay, so you're saying that these lot lines that you had to create because of the wells may impact the building setbacks? So
Right.
some of them aren't going to comply with the
Right.
building setbacks?
Right.
Okay, but on the whole scale of the project, you're only putting the property lines there just for the wells?
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. And that's it?
And that's it.
All right.
So mostly design related, as
Okay.
you can see, and those are things that we kind of hashed out with Fuss and O'Neill and discussed with them so that everyone's comfort level was there with that.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments about those waivers?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Anybody over on this side? Jim, do you have any questions about any of the waivers?
I just had a question. I know some of the neighbors had spoken. I believe they did a site walk with Sarah after the board did. Were any of those concerns addressed in that?
See, we still have a public meeting. The public hearing is still open, so we do have people in the audience. I don't know if they're here for this particular project tonight, but we can ask. But I think the concerns we had for the site walk were where the drainage basins were going to be located. And actually, the drainage basins were reduced in size and actually moved away from a lot of the residents that had been impacted previously with the first plan. So actually, it was a better
Yes.
situation for the neighbors.
Right.
Did you hear anything?
I actually, hopefully Jim can hear me. I met with two of the closest residents, and and had a site walk with them after we had staked the edges of the infiltration basins, and both of those neighbors were satisfied once we walked out in the woods and didn't have any further comment.
Okay. Did you hear that, Jim?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
I just wanted- Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, so that answered your question. Okay, great. Okay, so if there aren't any more questions or comments by the board, we still have an open public hearing. Is there anyone out in the audience that would have any questions or comments?
I do have one question. Looking on this, it says they should review phasing with the clearing and the building. Can you just do that?
Yes. We have prepared a draft construction phasing plan. And I should say too, the plans that we had submitted with our revised package still say draft on them because we figured there would be a few additional minor tweaks after going back again with Fuss and O'Neill. So what we would like to do is add those final pieces that we've talked about with Sean Martin from Fuss and O'Neill, including some notes on the plans that we will finalize and submit. So what we have proposed and talked to Sean about was phasing everything in 3 phases. And actually, let's bring this up here. We added to the dark blue line that you can see here, and it shows the proposed phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So for each phase, we're proposing, I'll leave it to you when I get back over there, but the requisite clearing, grading, site stabilization, and build out. And then the same for the second and third phases. But that's basically what is going to be entailed in our proposed phasing plan. And so that's what we've talked about with Fuss and O'Neill.
What's the build-out time on that? What are you guessing? How long will it take?
It's hard to guess, but we're going with, would you say 2 to 3 years?
2 to 3 years, I think.
That's the plan right now.
Okay.
We'll hope for that, the economy to continue to be so strong.
That's right.
So for each phase, we're proposing site clearing and stabilization, rough grading, installation of the infiltration basins so that you get the stormwater management in place immediately, installation of drain and water piping and all the structures, underground utilities, sewer piping structures, and the sewer system, septic system, and then start the construction of the units, roadway completion, and landscaping. So roughly in that order, and we'll just call it a general construction sequence, because sometimes things come before the other that can be manipulated, but that's the plan.
I think it's likely they'll put the road in at one time because of the cost that's attended with coming in and trying to build part of it, then build part of it. So I think you'll see the road go in all at once.
And that'll all be discussed with the building inspector, health agent, all the different inspectors in town become part of that construction process. So there's a lot of oversight with that.
So you're not clearing in a single phase, because it looked
No.
like you had,
No.
okay, even with the road? Making the road all at once?
Possibly
you're
the
not-
road.
The road, yeah, probably the road.
But not
the
clearing
rest of
like
it, no.
beyond the road, just clearing enough to make the road?
Yes,
Okay.
because we think that it's really bad to cut trees, and because who knows, if you come in and cut it, and then you have a blip in the economy, and now
Right.
you got a place all cut. Just not good planning.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of these types with long roads, and they've broken it up into phases, and they'll construct the road. Sometimes they'll just pave, base coat the first section, and then when they continue, and they'll build out the first section, and then put a sub pavement down for the second section and
Right.
build that out. So that's usually the way they go.
Right.
Yeah, put your wearing course, don't put the wearing course on until you're finished.
Right,
Because
yes,
when they do the construction, they wreck the road.
right. It gets
And
all marked up.
The
yeah.
key, too, is that the emergency access road is proposed in Phase 2, where the road becomes longer than that 600 feet. So really, for the first phase, no one's going to be living past that first 600-foot mark. And again, we'll be working with CFD on the installation of that as well.
All right. Any other questions by board members? Seeing none, anybody out in the audience wish to speak? Seeing no one, I think we can close the public hearing now.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second that.
So we have a motion and a second. We'll have a roll call vote. Will?
Aye.
Jen?
Jen, aye.
Bruce, aye.
Kevin, aye.
And Jim?
Jim, aye.
Okay, so it's unanimous. All right, so the public hearing's closed. Do we have a rough draft of the conditions?
We do, Mr. Chair. I have them prepared. They are similar and substantively similar, I might add, to the conditions we saw in the last project. There are, though, some additional conditions with some unique elements resulting from this particular project. There are 21 conditions, and Sarah enumerated, I think, 8 waivers, but I think I pulled 10 from the bus memo coupled with your application. Mr. Chairman, would you like for me to go through the conditions?
Yes, please.
Condition 1, prior to the issuance of a building permit, a true copy of the recorded decision as registered at the County Registry of Deeds shall be submitted to the board. Approval of previous definitive subdivision plan recorded at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds shall be rescinded upon the recording of this decision. The project must be constructed as approved in the site plan. Any revisions will require approval from the board as a modification of this decision. The applicant is responsible for the proper operation and maintenance of the site. During construction, sedimentation and oil erosion controls shall be installed, repaired and supplemented as needed. Dust control is required during construction, and the roadway apron is to be kept swept and clear of any dust, dirt, or debris. Any outstanding balance of the review and inspections deposit account shall be paid prior to the issuance of a certificate of use and occupancy. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, all easements, deed restrictions, and conveyances, if any, as submitted to the planning board, shall be executed and recorded at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds and shall be submitted to the Carver Planning Department. As soon as is practically possible, the applicant will provide the planning board with a statement estimating the cost to construct the new residential road and associated drainage. Estimated costs will determine the value of the covenants consistent with the Town of Carver rules, regulations, and bylaws. All ways, roads, drainage facilities, water facilities, and other utilities within the development site shall remain private, and any maintenance thereof, snow plowing, and any other associated costs shall be the responsibility of the applicant or its successor in interest with respect to same, until said time, if the Town of Carver accepts all responsibilities of said roadway and associated easements. Condition 9, a copy of any change in ownership of said property and responsibility of said development shall be filed with the town clerk within 30 days of recording of said instrument. During construction, all local, state, and federal laws shall be followed. There shall be no burying of stumps anywhere on the approved development site. The emergency access road will be locked and used only by Town of Carver emergency vehicles if needed. Best efforts shall be made by applicant and successive owners to maintain a buffer between adjacent properties and the property site. Landscaping and screening must be maintained in areas where the buffer is determined to be less than 40 feet. The point at which the emergency access road joins the new subdivision road shall comply with fire department regulations and all weather surface that is aesthetically consistent with the characteristic of the rest of the development. The applicant and successive owners shall ensure the intent of inclusionary zoning provisions is upheld pursuant to Section 3000, inclusionary zoning found in the Town of Carver zoning bylaw. Particular care shall be exercised to ensure compliance with Sections 3040, design and construction, 3045, habitable space requirements, and 3087, segmentation. The applicant shall record open space restrictions at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds and provide documentation to the planning board. Appropriate traffic and directional signs shall be installed at all traffic circles and roadways, including easement road intersections. The project will be constructed in phases. The applicant shall provide a proposed phasing plan for all construction and land clearing activities to ensure clearing is done at pace with construction. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, applicant must must provide the SWAP, or the stormwater and pollution prevention.
SWIP.
Applicant shall conduct 2 soil test pits at each proposed stormwater basin for review and approval by the planning board prior to the commencement of construction. Any design modifications necessitated from the results of the soil test pits should be submitted to the planning administrator to determine whether the changes require review by planning board. And condition 21, applicant shall conduct turning movement analysis with Carver Fire Department to determine whether department trucks can make the turn with the proposed radius at the edge of pavement at intersections. Written acceptance of this condition shall be provided to the planning board from the Carver Fire Department.
Could I ask for clarification on condition 20 regarding test pits?
That appears in the FUS memo.
Yes.
I hope that you had resolved some of that beforehand, but it doesn't seem that
The only, I think it's just a logistical clarification where it calls for revisiting approval of the test pits with the planning board. I just wanted to confirm that that doesn't mean in a public hearing forum, but coordinate with either the planning department or the health agent as appropriate for test pits.
Because the health agent has already determined that we have adequate soil, and the health agent is who does the
Right.
stormwater management in town.
the planning board is charged with overseeing stormwater management. As it were, any design modifications necessitated from the results of the soil test pits should be submitted to the planning administrator.
Right. I just meant the first sentence.
How was that? So you're saying that the test pits have already been conducted?
So we did meet with the health agent during or prior to the TRC to ask if he would require additional test pits for the basins that are now in a different location than our first proposal. And he was comfortable with the characterization of the soils on the site because it's all sand and gravel, that we did not need to perform additional test pits. So we have not, and we really have no plans to, but if the board feels more comfortable for us to do test pits prior to creating the basin, we can do that. I would just like to clarify that report, if that condition is going to stay, be submitted to the planning administrator as opposed to any unclear language about coming back to the board itself. That was my only requested clarification.
What testing has been done out there?
So last year, we did a significant round of test pits witnessed by the health agent and Fuss and O'Neill for various areas of proposed septic systems and infiltration basins, and multiple pits along the center line of the roadway, all without any issue, not surprisingly,
And the soils were consistent?
throughout the entire site. Yeah.
Okay, they were, okay.
So, and that's why the health agent this go-round said, there's really no need. It was so uniform throughout the entire 30 acres, and we wouldn't anticipate that there would be any real difference this time around, since the basins are proposed in a slightly different orientation, but adjacent to where they were before, so.
Okay, and so this isn't for the septic systems, it's just strictly for
For the
the...
basins.
Just for the basins?
Yeah,
The
correct.
septic systems are a little more strict.
Right, and that would be coordinated, again, all of this gets coordinated with the health agent anyway. So I just didn't want to confuse the issue. That was my only point to bring up.
It sounds okay to me.
So if it pleases the chairman and the board, I changed the planning board to planning administrator here. Is that okay, Sarah? Is that consistent with what you're thinking?
Yes, that's clearer to me, just, months from now when we go back and look at that, and while we're doing it, I just wanted to.
Frankly, Mr. Chairman, if anything draws my ire, I'll be revisiting the matter with Fuss and O'Neill anyhow. And
Okay.
If it necessitates additional action by the board, I will of course bring it to the board's attention.
Okay, good.
Would you mind just running through the waivers, because I want to make sure that,
Clarify, because
yeah, I don't know why you have more than me.
This is from your submission email that I
Yes.
copied and pasted, so some things may not.
Since then, we've
You've chosen
eradicated a number and added one.
So waivers, section 721, waive the need for driveway leveling area of 25 feet.
Mhm.
Okay. 721, waive the need for, to have driveway center line radii of 100 feet or greater.
Yep.
Section 732G, waive the requirement for the edge of pavement at intersection to have a minimum radius of 30 feet. That was also one of the conditions we
Right.
worked with CFD.
Yep.
Section 732H1, waive the requirement for minor streets to have a minimum centerline radius of 150 feet.
Yep.
Section 734, waive the requirement for minor streets to follow the standard cross-section provided in Appendix B.
Right?
Section 735E,
No.
we're getting rid of that one?
Yes. And that went away due to our design revisions. We no longer needed it.
Excellent. Section 736B, waive the requirement for dead-end streets to have a maximum length of 600 feet.
Mhm.
Section 736C, waive the requirement for the cul-de-sac to follow the dimensions shown on the cul-de-sac detail in Appendix B.
Yep.
Section 738, waive the requirement to provide curbing on both sides of the road throughout the subdivision.
No,
Not necessary.
we don't need that anymore.
Lastly, section 739, waive the requirement for minor streets to provide a sidewalk on one side of the road.
No,
Getting rid of that one?
we got rid of that one. We added a sidewalk.
Thank you for doing that.
No problem.
And with that, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, that constitutes the draft decision.
Actually, we had that one other additional waiver request that I went over for the zoning bylaw for the 40-foot buffer from the internal lot lines.
Oh, you know, I had that in my earlier draft, I guess I took that out.
It's in my memo.
Watch this. I think I had that as a condition. I think that's what happened. I took it out as a waiver and put it in the condition. Well, nonetheless, I will be glad to add that. Sarah, what section was that?
Section 3961 of the zoning bylaw.
3961.
Yeah.
Okay, so that has been entered into the conditions.
Yes, sir. Actually, it appeared as a condition. I will show you that again, just to
Okay.
reaffirm.
But you just
It did not
made that a waiver, okay,
Correct.
all right.
Yeah, and again, we weren't really sure if it needs a waiver, but
Right.
just better to be overly cautious.
Sure, understand.
Yes, sir. Number 13 indicates that landscaping and screening must be maintained in areas where the buffer is determined to be less than the 40 feet.
Okay. Any comments by the board?
Stephen, in number 8, Carver was spelled wrong.
Was it?
Yeah, there was an R missing. The top part. The bottom line of number 8.
Oh, you don't say Carver?
Yeah.
We do.
It's gonna say. Probably a lot of people pronounce it that
The only
way.
one I got.
I didn't realize that caver was a word.
All right, so if there are no more questions or comments about the waivers, I'll
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the proposal for DPH Realty Trust, 0 South Meadow Road, with the conditions that were outlined tonight.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Will?
Will I?
Jen, aye.
Bruce, aye.
Kevin, aye.
And Jim, are you still with us?
Yep, Jim, aye.
All right. Okay, so that's it.
Thank you very much, and
Thank you.
I appreciate your courtesy that you've extended to us, and particularly Steve Cole, who's been really helpful.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all. I'm not. Ed gets to go.
Don't go anywhere,
Sure
Sarah.
you didn't want to get up and stretch?
All right. The next is on the application of Borrego Solar Systems, Inc., requesting a special permit and site plan review pursuant to sections 3100, 3580, and 5300 of the Carver zoning bylaw, located at 0 Wareham Street in Carver, Mass., which is Assessors Map 134, 4-2, to allow a large-scale ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installation, which is the LSGM SPI. The proposed project includes a proposed solar array and energy storage facility adjacent to an existing solar array in accordance with the solar bylaw in a residential agricultural district. So we went on some of us went on a site walk with Sarah, and we this particular solar array is the one that's adjacent to the landfill.
Nope.
And
It's the other one.
Oh, this is the one across the street from the landfill.
Correct.
Oh, well, okay. Well, I'm glad you were here to correct me on that. Okay, so this is so we did walk this one, and in this particular one, we walked, and it was largely, and this is for Jim, especially. We did walk it. It's across the street from the landfill, and we walked way out into the woods, and I would say that this particular site, no one would actually see the solar array at all. And all the adjacent land, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is owned by Makepeace. So, when we did walk it, I know there was some of the members of the board were concerned about, cutting of the forest, but as we looked at it, it seemed like a large part of the forest out there was diseased. A lot of the trees were dead or dying. So in this particular case, it didn't seem like it really is not really disturbing a good forest out there. It seemed like it was a good place to put this solar array, and nothing will be in sight from the street or from any other people that live around there, because there's quite a distance between houses in this field. So having said that, for Jim and anyone else that didn't attend the walk,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the record, Sarah Stearns with Beals and Thomas and Zach Farkas with Borrego Solar. As the chairman said, we had the site visit on December 6th with the members of the board who could attend. We are currently going through some revisions with Fuss and O'Neill based on a review memo that we received, as well as comments from Carver Fire Department, and we are in the midst of doing some redesign regarding some of the stormwater components for this site. So we really don't have anything further to add tonight. We're happy to answer any questions, but we will likely request a continuance for this project for the board's next hearing.
Which would be January 8th.
January 8th. Yes.
If the board chooses to continue to allow the continuance, we just have to make sure we set the date definitive is all. So January 8th would be that date.
Well, if that's the case, why don't we, I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing to January 8th at 7 o'clock.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Those in favor, we'll do a roll call. Will?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
Bruce, aye.
Kevin, aye.
And Jim?
Jim, aye.
Jim, aye. Okay, so we will continue that to our next meeting then. Okay, so we'll move on to the next, and it's, this is on the application of Borrego Solar Systems, Inc., requesting a special permit and site plan review pursuant to sections 3100, 3580, and 5300 of the Carver zoning bylaw, located at 276 Federal Road in Carver, Mass., Assessors Map 131-2-1 and 131-2-A, to allow a large-scale ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installation. The proposed project includes a proposed solar array and energy storage facility adjacent to an existing solar array in accordance with the solar bylaw in a residential agricultural district. And we did do a site walk, and as I remember, now this is the one that's to the right of the landfill, or adjacent to the landfill, and also adjacent to an existing solar array. And in this particular case, I remember we walked out there, and again, there was a concern by some of the board members about the trees being cut, and we did notice that there was an area that is being utilized that had already been cut for the last solar array that exists there now. So that's going to be utilized, so there wouldn't be any cutting of any of the trees on that side, but on part of it, there will be some tree cutting on it. And other than that, as in the last one we spoke about and saw, this is well off the road. The only people that I think would see this solar array, if you were standing on the landfill and looking down, you might see it. And any of the electrical components to this field were well off the road too, and really aren't going to be seen by anyone. So having said that,
Mr. Chairman, if I may interject, before we go much further with this public hearing, I would like to ask the board to close this hearing and then reopen the hearing. There was a procedural error and oversight. There were some abutters on the Wareham side, although all of the Carver residents were informed. We did have to go after the opening of the public hearing at the last meeting and inform, I think, 4 or 5 abutters that the project is occurring, that there is a public hearing. So just a matter of procedure, just to kind of clean up the backlog, if we could close this hearing and then immediately again reopen this hearing, that would satisfy state statutes and notification requirements.
do I have what I have to read at the beginning of this meeting to open up? Do I have that in my package, or do you have that so I can read it? All right, so we have to close the public hearing.
And that would be without prejudice? Oh, is that how that's going? Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Oh,
Thank you,
okay,
Sarah.
thank you. Okay. So we have a motion to close the public hearing. Do I hear a second? Did you second? And Jen seconded it. Those in favor, we'll do a roll call vote. Will?
Will I?
Jen?
Aye.
Bruce, aye.
Kevin, aye.
And Jim?
And Jim, aye.
Okay, thank you. So we've closed the public hearing, and we'll reopen it. So this is December 11th.
No, we'll be opening the public hearing,
Right.
not reopening.
All right, so we have a public hearing notice. In accordance with the provisions of the Town of Carver zoning bylaw, the Carver Planning Board will hold a public hearing on December 11th, 2018 at 7 PM in the Carver Town Hall, Meeting Room 1, on the application of Borrego Solar Systems, Inc., requesting a special permit and site plan review pursuant to sections 3100, 3580, and 5300 of the Carver zoning bylaw. It's located at 276 Federal Road in Carver, Mass., which is assessors maps 131-2-1 and 131-2-A, to allow a large-scale ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installation. The proposed project includes a proposed solar array and energy storage facility adjacent to an existing solar array in accordance with the solar bylaw in a residential agricultural district. Any persons interested in wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated. A copy of the plan is on file at the Planning Department and may be reviewed during normal business hours. Carver Planning Board, Bruce Mackey, Chair, and Carver report of published dates. And these were the correct ones, or did we revise these dates?
Those are correct.
Okay, so the Carver report of published dates, November 9th and the 16th of 2018. All right, so we've, okay, so now we can continue, I guess.
So we had a site visit. So just to give a quick summary of where we are with the project, Borrego Solar is proposing approximately 7 megawatt renewable energy and battery storage facility on a property up of 276 Federal Road, south of an existing Phase 1 solar array, south of the landfill. The area is properly sited for this use on 80 Makepeace owned land. It has been designed and located to comply fully with the Carver Solar bylaw, including setbacks and screening. It is a wooded site with significant areas of dead or dying red pines that has become a potential fire hazard in some areas. The closest abutting resident is in Wareham, approximately 700 feet away, as shown on that exhibit. The overall property is approximately 75 acres, for which we have just gone through the A&R process to change that total acreage. And just as a reminder, we did go through Conservation Commission review for work in the outermost buffer zone associated with a nearby river, and were issued an order of conditions about a month ago now for that. Our site visit, as the chairman said, was December 6th, 2018.
Wasn't it the 3rd?
No, that was mine.
Which brings me to my next comment. Zach was able to meet with one of the members, Mr. Sinclair, to look at a similar project in Winchendon, Mass., right around the corner, on December 3rd. So I think that was what sounds like it was a valuable site visit, and I think Stephen has some photographs from that site visit as well to share with the board.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair.
Please, go ahead. I'd love to see it.
Thank you, Sarah. First of all, I'd like to thank Zach for meeting me out there. I forget the other gentleman's name that was there, but I appreciate all his help also. On December 3rd, I went out to Winchendon to take a look at the site out there. It was a great ride. If anybody wanted to go, it was awesome. It wasn't really that bad. You can see that the initial layout that Stephen got us gives you an aerial area of the site. It's similar to what we're talking about here in this application, so it was really good to go out and take a look at this. Go ahead, Steve. This, as you can see, they had snow. Wicked good place for it out there, not here. But as you can see, the site's laid out with the fencing that we always ask. And most in particular, the picture on the right, you'll see that white fence there. And you'll see the equipment is above that white fence is the battery storage containers. I thought it was important that this being one of the first applications for this town to look at, that we got a eye view on it. and being an electrical contractor and also a wire inspector for a couple of towns, I think that it was valuable information for us to bring back to this town. Go ahead, Steve. This right here is, and if I mess this up, please jump on me.
Yeah, the first letter.
This right here you'll see is part of the equipment that's associated with the battery storage and the solar equipment. Go ahead, Steve, jump across. You'll see these containers here. We had some concerns about the containers and stuff. This equipment that's here that you'll see with the HVAC units off to the side and the ductwork going up into the equipment, this is the equipment that locates and houses all the battery storage equipment that's fed from the solar arrays. There's 2 of these on this particular site for this size of the solar array. Go ahead, Steve. That's just another look at it. I wanted you guys to get a good look at what they look like, how they're elevated off the ground, how they're situated. And I'll have Zach talk a little bit about the layout that is here with the HVAC units on the platforms and the ductwork coming up. Normally, from what we were told, the HVAC units would be right on top of the containers. Note that from, and I think I got another picture of it, I'm not sure, but the size of the plastic fence was 8 foot high. Okay, so you'll see a little bit above that, but from this site, like similar to the sites that we're looking at, you ain't gonna see this. I couldn't see it from the street. I was there an hour and something before Zach and everybody else got to the site, just to poke around and get my nose into stuff before I got viewed. No residents. The resident was quite a ways away, so it was a good visit. Good. This is the interior of that container where all the equipment's stored. You can see, and most in particular, I wanted to get a picture of the inside for not only for us showing the equipment, but also the safety measures that are in there. You see the fire suppression system that's located within and fire notification. And there's also a way that this communicates via a cellular link if there is an issue at hand, whether it's overheating or anything like that. They'll get notice to dispatch. Totally self-contained. You see all the emergency equipment in it, plenty of ample lighting that's in the battery storage units themselves. Good, see. This is just mostly for me, but I thought it was helpful for the bylaw committee if they got any of this indications, they can see the actual equipment. I thought that was important. Also helpful for the electrical inspector's position. Go ahead.
So that's the end of the photos, Mr. Sinclair. I had it queued up to play the video, but my internet is not loading. So
That's okay.
I take a 15-second video or so. Just
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to, it's basically a view of the actual site. Shows the size of the solar array prior to going into the site. You can go back to the initial one that showed the fencing. I thought was one more. Go back, go one previous that showed the container and the fencing. So that's up close. You can see the wooded area behind it, plus the hill and everything. Borrego still installed this plastic fencing there. Okay, it looks good and everything like that, but you really couldn't see it from anywhere. And I drove around trying to find the site. Luckily, the street signage I saw gave me indication, but I was parked at the initial driveway, and I wasn't even close to the right driveway to get into the site where the construction was. So it was very well pushed way back, which indicates to me that where the site is, the equipment that's housed, the housings that all the equipment's in is adequate to similar to the same equipment that we see in inverters and power stations and transformers and stuff like that. So I thought it was well worth the trip out there. I was actually jonesed about it. It was for an electrician, this was good stuff. But I appreciate Zach for meeting me out there and his other gentlemen. I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Zach, because I knew that you spent some time after I left, unless you were trying to look it up.
I thought that was great. We picked the site because it was of a similar look, smell, and feel as to what we're proposing here, albeit 2 hours away. But this is one of one of the sites that's furthest along. So it's a great indication, and I'm happy to take any follow-up questions that the board may have.
So, does anybody,
Mr. Chair.
anybody have any questions?
Well, I guess about this, I'm really glad that Will went and got to see it. But it kind of reminds me of with cranberry bogs, you always have the pump houses that have the pumps in them. Everybody knows when you're driving by a cranberry bog what's in there. It's not a little shed, it's not a little house, you know something's in there. But it's more eye appealing. I'd love to see this go in something kind of similar. So as they pop up around town, if down the road something changes and they are more visible, you're not seeing something that looks more industrial like that, but you're seeing something that resembles a pump house.
So, Mr. Chair, if I can, I had that initial concern when I went out there, and that's probably one of the biggest things that made me go around the corner for a small little jaunt to check that out. It's similar to what I was expecting, and like I said at the previous meeting, yuck, until I talked with our fire department. I shared these photos and sat down with Deputy Chief Germain. I know in some of the comments we'll see here from the chief, Jesse Boyle, some of the indications, and I'll be brief. I asked the chief very specifically, Deputy Chief Germain, putting a shed metal structure over these containers, what hazards would that bring? If at all, anything. He had a pretty good concern that whether or not, if there was a fire or some type of incident with another structure over it, creates challenges for the fire department. And most in particular, you're going into one occupied space. How is it going to be treated? How is it going to be fire suppression? How are you going to be able to contain that and then to get into the actual space and what you would bring? My concern after and that was just being brief, my concern with after talking with the deputy chief on that was that there's no way, and this is just me personally, that I would ever put one of our residents at harm going in to fight that structure like that, causing an additional problem, additional structure problem, an additional hazard to a firefighter, which is our residents. We know we're all on call here. It was a concern for me, the look. The look matches the site. We're talking a solar installation. We're talking solar inverters, transformers, that end of it. It blends. It blends very well. The only concern that I had that shreds me away from some type of buffer around it, a structure, another additional structure, is the fire safety hazard for our firefighters. In a nutshell, that's my issue. If this was on Route 58, where the paddock bog is, where the paddock solar system is, that's a different story. It's up front. If there was a battery storage facility that was proposed there, it probably wouldn't get approved by me. Just because of there's no way to actually screen it, no way to buffer it. The particular site that the application that's in front of us, you ain't gonna see it. And I think it's a great application for the site. But I'll leave that up to the board to decide how they want to move on it. But for an additional structure, I wouldn't be in favor of putting an additional structure just because of safety hazards.
My other point or concern was with the trees. And this site the trees were notably healthier than the other ones. It's a very large wooded area, and I had found the Department of Energy Resources, I'm going to quote them, it says, "The Department of Energy Resources strongly discourages designating locations that require significant tree cutting because of the important water management, cooling, and climate benefits trees have. The DOER encourages designating locations in industrial and commercial districts or on vacant, disturbed land." So I think it's probably reasonable to ask that an equal to or greater amount of land be put into a conservation restriction. I know in the past you've said that Makepeace is doing that for kind of their motherhood of projects, but I'd like to see some specifically for this project put into conservation, because it is such a large piece of area that's going to be cleared.
Understood. I think there were two things we talked about, but just for the benefit of the, I don't want to call it the reopened, but the newly opened public hearing, with this particular site, we were trapped a bit between driving the array further south and closer to the residents in Wareham. Sarah mentioned the 700-plus foot buffer from the nearest actual resident. If we pushed further south to an area of more larger stands of dying trees, we'd simply remove all that visual and physical buffer. And also we'd lose the benefit of jigsaw puzzling this project up with phase one. So we picked clearing more of the healthier trees in order to keep the site better screened and well set off and minimize the total project footprint of the two sites. That said, I think we are willing, I think 80 Makepeace has been a great steward of their land over the years. A couple of the stats that we had prepared for this meeting was they have over 1,800 total acres that have been either placed in conservation or moved into some type of permanent reservation of use over the years. So there's huge swaths of land that are being protected. I think specific to this site, it's very difficult to find other acreage at this exact time to reserve. I think, but we would like to work with the planning board and the town of Carver if there's any specific areas that you would like Borrego or Makepeace or the group to work directly on, whether it's donating to a tree fund so that some of the reforesting or the, I don't know what the proper word is, but the landscaping of areas in town of more critical value. We're happy to participate that way. It's a little difficult from an acre to acre offset, especially considering the major impacts that Makepeace makes across their portfolio. But if there is a mechanism for us to participate that way, we're very much willing.
I'm not saying it has to be adjacent to this, but, you know, they are the largest landholder. It doesn't have to be this, and they've done a lot, but because this is a huge swath of land in Carver, I'd love to see more of Carver protected, and, you know, they have a bit of land. So, but it doesn't have to be adjacent to this, like you said, moving the project would have changed the footprint.
Exactly.
But it is disturbing the natural resources quite a bit.
It is. Yep, it is.
I don't know how we would move forward with that if you guys support it, but.
I know I've spoken to Stephen. Did you have some thoughts on this, Stephen?
We did speak to the applicant's representative, and what I understand is that there have been some overtures by the applicant and the owner to contribute to the town's tree reforestation fund. It was something that I've discussed with the town administrator for other projects. We're not allowed to charge an impact fee. And it's not necessarily in our bylaws to require replacing any of the trees that are being removed. So anything that they are contributing is strictly a result of goodwill and negotiations. And so the conversation I'm recalling was that Borrego and Makepeace would contribute some monetary donation to the town so that we could replace some of the trees that are removed. It's not possible to replace them on site. Frankly, there's a reason why they're being removed anyway.
Right.
But as you said, Mr. Chairman, you know, there's the area across the street and just down a ways a little bit where the Hammond Street location is, we're experiencing some serious deforestation there. There is a task force that's been convened to address those issues of invasive species that might be killing our trees. That said, there was an image up earlier that's in front of Member Sinclair and Member Bogart that shows the condition of some of those trees. We saw the perimeter of the project site when we did our site visit. I don't necessarily know, and I can't say with certainty, that the rest of the site looks similar to what we saw on Hammond Street. In fact, it's pervasive throughout our community, and it's not restricted to any one area. So I would be shocked to think that the federal street proposal doesn't have some kind of dead trees located within that forested area that probably do need to come out. But that said, we do have some overture and a commitment from the applicant to contribute to the town's reforestation fund.
That would be determined later?
That would be determined later. I think it's fair that we apply some kind of a formulaic assessment to it if that's the direction that they wanted to go in. But I do caution the board that it's not a requirement. We cannot require this, and it cannot be a condition of our decision tonight.
As a suggestion, just for discussion purposes, in the town of Rochester recently, the formulaic solution we came up with was hiring a third-party forester to basically value the timber, the forest that's out there, and we're able to translate that pretty easily to some numbers. As Stephen said, I don't want to get into the awkwardness of trying to do it through, we can't do it through a condition or through anything formal, but I think that's the commitment you have, certainly from me and from my company. We've been doing business in Carver for many years, and I hope we've garnered the reputation that we'll stand behind that word, and I'm giving it to you now.
Okay. Oh, I think that's excellent. I think that's good. But until you actually clear that site, you're not going to know what's healthy out there and what, what may be diseased. So, yeah, you really have no way of coming up with any kind of value of what it's worth out there.
Well, that's the exact solution, is we send a qualified individual, a group of individuals out there to basically perform a tree value or timber value report. That report is pretty simple, and it can be performed now, or it can be performed anytime. We probably don't want to do it in the middle of the winter, but there's probably a window now where we could do it prior to the commencement of construction, however we'd like to agree on it. But it can certainly be done. It doesn't have to be a clear the trees and figure it out later. I think it's certainly something we're willing to work on with you guys on over the upcoming months.
Good. I think that's good. That's good. Does that
I don't have any more
work with you?
questions.
Does that work with you?
I don't know that I completely agree. If a forestation fund, where are you going to replant the trees in town? If you can't replant here, what does that fund, the money that goes into that fund and what does it get used for?
Well, I mean, just looking even across the street, we have some trees in our town hall plaza that could probably be replaced. I'm not in a position, Mr. Chairman, to answer that question this evening. I think it necessitates further analysis. I know we have some members on the board who are landscape professionals, and I think it'd be fine to engage them as well. I don't think it's appropriate to necessarily answer that question tonight, especially since it's also not necessarily a condition of its approval.
Right.
I've never heard of that before. So.
Well, because it's brand new, and as an economic development planner, I have taken some measures to negotiate with other developers to do something very similar, who are clearing areas that are 3 acres that are not necessarily in the purview of this board. So it is a little unprecedented, but it's certainly been attempted in other communities.
So it's a step in the right direction, I guess.
I like that.
Do you have any questions,
That
Kevin?
was my concern, and I appreciate you looking into the forester, talking to him about that, and that's something that I'm hoping along the lines is going to be continued to be moved forward, that we can do some replanting and replanting in places that would be helpful.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I would like to thank Kevin because he has lent his expertise to some of these conversations and negotiations as well. And frankly, his questioning during that site visit, I think, don't want to speak for the applicant or the applicant's reps, but I believe that line of questioning and area of concern is what precipitated the generous act by the applicant and the owner.
Cara, do you have any questions?
No, pretty much what Catherine said.
Okay.
And if a professional forester does go in there and you have areas of dead trees adjacent to that, maybe they'll suggest that those trees need to go too, because it's a fire hazard and you don't want that near your project. So it's
Right.
probably a good thing.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, Jim, are you still with us?
Yep, still there.
Do you have any questions?
No, I think the questions just asked covered what my concerns were.
Okay. All right. Any questions about the project at all? Any other questions? You're all set.
I'm all set. Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I could add one more comment. With this project, we have gone back and forth with Fuss & O'Neill. We received a comment letter and have provided a response to the peer review comments along with a revised stormwater report and revised set of final plans along with the letter with multiple attachments, predominantly from Borrego Solar. And we received a final memo yesterday from Fuss & O'Neill stating that all of their comments have been addressed. So we have successfully worked all of their comments out and have that final memo that was submitted to Stephen.
Mr. Chair, I handed that memo out to each of the members of the board. It's probably hard to recognize because I don't think I've ever seen such a memo from Fuss and O'Neill with such brevity, but I think they even added some extra spaces in between their bulleted notes just to fill the page. But this project does comply with the zoning bylaws in every sense, and I think that's why the Fuss and O'Neill memo is as brief as it appears.
Okay.
Yes, their comments were relatively minor. We were able to address all of them fairly easily, so must mean we did a great job.
All right, are there any members of the audience that have any questions or comments? Well, seeing no one coming forward, do you have the conditions ready for this particular project?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
All right,
I'll second that.
so we have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. We'll do a roll call vote. Will?
Will I?
Jen, I.
Bruce, aye.
Kevin, aye.
And Jim? And Jim? And Jim, aye. Also. So the public hearing is closed. If you have the conditions ready, if you want to go through them.
Many of the conditions are what I would describe as boilerplate, having appeared on many, if not all, of the previous solar ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installations. There are some particular issues with regard to the FUS memo, but as Sarah mentioned, those actually have already been satisfied. They just need to be submitted to us in a final form. Condition 1, prior to the issuance of a building permit, a true copy of the recorded decision as registered at the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds shall be submitted to the board. The project must be constructed as approved in the site plan. Any other revisions will require approval from the planning board as a modification to this decision. Prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall submit a site signage information, including details and locations. Prior to commencement of construction, applicant must submit notice of intent and acknowledgement from EPA. Sarah, do you know why you said EPA?
It's for the NIPD's permitting regarding stormwater management. So that's something that's required to be filed with the EPA 2 weeks before construction starts. So we would always send a copy to your attention anyway for your file.
Applicants must submit updated site owner's manual, including revisions outlined in memo provided by Fuss and O'Neill dated November 27, 2018. Applicant must submit updated SWIP. Did I say that right there?
You got it.
Including revisions outlined in Fuss and O'Neill's memo dated November 27, 2018. Applicant shall submit estimate of construction costs to the planning administrator. Prior to the issuance of an electrical permit, the applicant shall provide the board with a decommissioning bond in amount equal to 125% of construction costs to run with the life of the project. The applicant is responsible for the proper operation and maintenance of the site. During construction, sedimentation and soil erosion controls shall be installed, repaired, and supplemented as needed. Dust control is required during the construction, and the roadway apron is to be kept swept and clear of any dust or debris. Any outstanding balance of the review and inspection deposit account shall be paid prior to the issuance of a certificate of use and occupancy. And that pretty well satisfies most of the conditions, all of the conditions, I should say. If there's anything the board would like to add, I'd be glad to do that. Apologies, Sarah.
I just wanted to note that the comments regarding the stormwater pollution prevention plan, the SWIP, all of that information is submitted as part of our stormwater management report to the board as part of the review in draft form, because as I said, that final SWIP and pertinent documents does not get finalized until the contractor is known and all that site information is known, which is just prior to construction. So that's all, we're gonna see that again in the next Fuss and O'Neill memo. It's just the fact that we submit as common practice drafts at this point, so very typical.
If I may, one question. Condition number 8 referred to the decommissioning amount. I believe it said 125% of the decommissioning amount. Is the intent the present day value or the future value? In our decommissioning estimate, we provided all of our calculations for the present day decommissioning, and then we escalated it out at 1.5% per year for 20 years. So just for clarity, is it the present day value or the future value?
If you have an actual cost, I couldn't find it in the application.
It wasn't in the application, it was in our
It
response.
was in the supplemental package.
Mr. Chair, I believe most conditions are locked in at the time of construction, and it seems that the applicant has gone a little above and added a contingency for additional costs given the rate of inflation. Is that what informed that?
It varies town by town. Some like to take the present value and multiply it by 101.25. Others like to escalate it out. I think you'll find both are very similar, but I just want to make sure we're not, or I don't want to make sure, but I'd rather we don't do both, escalate it and add the extra 25%. But we do have a to the dollar, dare I say, to the penny estimate that I could provide to replace, just hard code the number right into the condition. If
We've done that before with other projects, frankly. The only reason I had the percentage, Mr. Chairman, is because I didn't have that tangible value.
Mhm.
I'd be very glad to put that in.
You have it. You have it. It's in there.
I didn't look for it. How's that?
So much better.
Well done.
And Mr. Chair, it looks like it's grand total of $139,386.05.
At present day value.
That's with the 1.5% inflation.
Over how many,
20 years.
20 years?
The present value is $103,490.02.
Mhm.
So it's about a $36,000 delta.
I think you do a little better taking the escalation as opposed to the present day times 25%.
Okay.
And we're fine with the larger
Okay.
two numbers.
That works, I think that works for me. If we take the larger number and do 125 with that, that'll work.
I added a few ones at the start.
I saw that.
You're moving the decimal place around on me a little bit? Move it to the left, not the right. Thank you.
All right, so we have the conditions. Any additions, deletions, comments by board members about the conditions?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the project for Borrego Solar with the conditions that were submitted.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Will?
Will I?
Jen, no.
Bruce, aye.
Kevin, aye.
And Jim?
Jim, aye.
Okay. So, it's 4-1. So,
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
okay.
Zach, thanks again for the visit.
fine.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I
Enjoy your
just want
holidays.
to,
We'll see you guys after the new year.
I just want to, thank you for taking Will out there, and I thank Will for going out there, spending all that time out there. It was very helpful to get all those pictures to see what it really looks like, so thank you.
Very good. Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is the application of David Mulcahy, 1929 Development LLC of Kingston, requesting a site plan review pursuant to sections 2230 and 3100 of the Carver zoning bylaw for property located at 157 North Main Street, and that's on Assessors Maps 24 dash Lot 4A in Carver, Mass. And I think I think this is going to be continued.
Yes, Mr. Chair, when we did receive a request for a continuance to our next meeting on January 8th, the reason for that is on the heels of the debate of the planning board to expand the definition of craftsman tradesman, it then necessitated the applicant to submit a special permit application. And in the bylaws, it further requires that when a special permit is accompanying a site plan, it shall be done coterminous or at the same time. So we just received the site plan application with sufficient time to advertise and inform the abutters so that it appears on the January 8th agenda.
Okay. So we'll have to vote to continue that.
Yes, sir, please.
Make a motion to continue the public hearing for David Mulcahy to 1/8/2019 at 7 PM.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Will?
Will I?
Jen, I.
Bruce, aye.
Kevin, aye.
And Jim?
Jim, aye.
All right. So that will be continued to our next meeting. I don't know if anybody was here for that tonight, but that'll go into our January hearing. We go to Planning Board member notes. And I guess we can just wish everybody on the board here and video people and everybody in the audience out here a Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah. And I guess with that, I guess Jim can go, we can end the remote participation. Or I guess we can continue until we vote to adjourn, I guess.
Why you read me so soon?
Well, no. Hang in there for another hour and a half. We'll be
Mr. Chair, I just have a couple things. Again, I'd like to wish everybody happy and healthy Christmas with your families, and happy Hanukkah, Mr. Jim, and everybody else out there. I do encourage people. That was a great site visit. I got a ton of information out of it. That was well worth going out there if you ever have the opportunity. I know Zach from Borrego is more than happy to have him and his people out there to meet with us and go over it. I think anybody who's on the task force, if they need information, they're more than willing to help, and they're the people that are out there working with this stuff. So it was very, very well done. That's all I have. Thank you.
And I guess just one other thing on that note, I'm just thinking that, as these things come to us, I think everyone's going to be a little different, and I think we're just going to have to take a look at each one of these and how it affects the abutting properties, and so we can determine what we can do for screening and whatever. But I think everyone's going to be a little bit different. I mean, they're going to be different for the size and for the location and for how far they're set back off the road and whereabouts in town they're going to be. So each one is something that have to take special consideration for each project, and no project's probably going to be exactly the same. Having said that, Kevin.
A very Merry Christmas to all. See you in,
Sorry. Are we missing a motion here? Because I got a letter from 27, I live on 27 Main Street. I'm sure we all have the same thing.
I just said that was the application for David Mulcahy. Application.
Battery storage.
Mr. Chairman, this appears to be for a standalone battery facility that was advertised for 31R Main Street. That will be appearing before. It wasn't complete, frankly. I think this letter was sent out a bit prematurely as the application wasn't complete enough to appear on our agenda. They do expect to come in before this board on January 8th.
Sorry, folks.
I had to get someone to cover me at the hospital for the last 3 hours because I thought this is what this meeting was about today,
I did enjoy seeing what you saw, at that site, and get to see exactly what we're, I think.
Because we're looking at.
Is this what we're gonna be,
is that what they're gonna do at Main Street?
We'll have to take a look at that. It may be different, but that'll be presented at next meeting in January. January 8th,
We have
was
no
that?
trees blockage on our yard anymore. All I see is that.
Well,
whole-
we'll talk, we'll talk about that, like, everything is different, so, and every situation's different, so we'll take a look at that. Can't really talk about it tonight because we don't have anything before us. So, we don't even know what this is gonna look like or where it's gonna go. But, we'll have all that information at the next meeting. Sorry about any, mix-up. I don't know, so you people are the abutters, so, I think you just get notified once. The meeting, oh, no, you'll be, how did that go? What was there, a mistake or something, or what happened?
Pardon?
So they're going to get, the question was, are they going to get notified again?
It's my belief that the notification requirement has been complete, but I will work with the applicant and the staff to see that that's not a statutory requirement that we re-advertise.
Yeah, all right.
They were incomplete. Mr. Chairman, I was explaining to one of the abutters that they submitted an application. It was not substantively complete, and so I believe the letters went out as is statutorily required. However, because it was incomplete, I couldn't allow it to proceed on our agenda.
Oh, I see, okay. So we were thinking that it would be presented tonight, and it wasn't because the application wasn't complete, the information that we were supposed to receive from them.
I wish we could have been notified. It just would have been a little easier, but I don't
Yeah,
know what else to schedule. What time?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I mean, when did we know?
Or some,
Yeah.
Wednesday.
It was, postponed.
Yeah, sorry, well, I'm sorry about that, but it'll be at our next meeting, that's all I can say.
One other question, on the letter it said something about there was a site map available at the town hall. Is that available anywhere?
We have a copy of a draft site plan in the planning office. If you're available throughout the week, I can certainly have it available for review at the front counter. It's immediately below this room here. Okay?
Stephen?
Yes, sir.
Take their email address.
Yeah, please, I'll be glad to send it electronically if that's...
Okay, phone number and
Mhm.
email address. We'll make sure, because KJ will send you the site plan out too, in addition to what the notice is.
All right, so, planning director notes.
Wait, can I say
Unless-
my two things?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I guess. I heard that there's a new business in town, a barber shop. I forget where it is, but I just want to wish them good luck and welcome to town because I think that's great. I wish I could promote you better. And then, question for you, Stephen, because I know you said it before, but I didn't write it down. I've seen like 5 or so basically billboards pop up in South Carver for EMT training in the last week, like on utility poles all over down there. And I know it's not up to us to enforce it. Who does that get reported to? How does that?
I'll take a note of that. If you have the specific locations, I'll make sure. The sign enforcement officer is our building commissioner, Bob Francis.
Okay.
This is a problem that's been happening throughout town. For public domain, right-of-way, and utility poles, they're supposed to receive some kind of a blessing or permission from the select board, if I'm not mistaken. The planning board would review the design elements of
Yeah.
that, but we've received no applications for something like this.
I
So-
just couldn't remember the guy's name.
Yeah, if you could let me know those locations, I'll be sure Bob is aware. Thank you, Jen.
Yep.
Anyone else have anything?
I may as well go too.
Okay.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy New Year.
To Montello.
Okay, all right. Congratulations to them. Good luck.
Yeah, right, it's silent.
All right, Jim, do you have anything to add?
I just want to say Merry Christmas and Happy Healthy New Year to everybody, and thanks for letting me participate remotely. Certainly worth it.
Well, we appreciate you hanging in there with us, and we thank you for doing it.
Safe travels home, Jim.
Thank you.
You're going to be back for Christmas, I hope.
Yes.
All right. Okay, planning director notes.
Mr. Chairman, I think that I would like to thank an unsung hero on our board, someone who's absolutely a member of ours but has provided some indispensable help to me, Kara. We don't get to hear from you often enough, Kara, and as an alternate, you can really only vote on special permits, but I'm going to pause, because I think that should happen. I'm gonna let everyone exhaust their applause and hands, because you have provided some indispensable help to me and the staff, and I appreciate that, and you
Thanks.
consistently contribute in a meaningful way.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, and thank the rest of the board, too, who's just so great.
Yeah,
I mean,
It's a group effort, it is.
Just to go along with the holiday spirit.
It's a group effort.
Merry Christmas to you all.
Thank you.
That was good.
All right, before us, we have the minutes of October 23rd and of November 27th. If we could take these one at a time.
Yeah, where are they?
So, Mr. Chair, on the 27th, I believe we had this in front of us last time. We were looking for some clarification that Jen had brought up.
Mr.
Yes.
Chair, if I may interject to clarify, I believe that might be an error on our agenda. It should be the minutes not from 10:23, but from 11:13. And it was that meeting that Member Bogart had raised the question about the comment or the quote. If it's okay with the board, I did go back and I watched that videotape. And Jen, please correct me if I'm incorrect, but I think that the area that you were particularly concerned about was, and I'm quoting now from the tape, but I'm not sure that it's reasonable to expect a citizen to respond to something like that. That was the end of the quote. But it proceeds at the 1 hour, 36 minute, and 25 second mark. I quote, "I appreciate you turning to a local landscaper to work with, and I think it's great you're working with the abutters that responded, but there's that one house on Center Street that has what I think is probably the worst view of it because the solar panels are facing their house. And I know that you've said, and you've concurred, that whoever lives there has been reached out to and hasn't responded. So I don't see any kind of landscape plan for that, but I'm not sure it's reasonable to expect a citizen to respond to something like that." That was the quote, and it went on,
Yeah.
but it was frankly not to mitigate the substance of the matter, but I think the issue here is whether or not the essence of that commentary was captured. Jen, if you went back and you have anything further to contribute, I just want to note, though, that in those minutes, Susan, Ms. Hannon has captured verbatim what was said at that point in the meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to be more clear and responsible for this. Again, my intent based on that was responding to the special permit to have the bylaw upheld. So, yeah, if that was added more specific, awesome.
I do believe your preceding comments help capture that, and they are reflected in the minutes from this evening as well. Yes? They will be reflected in the comments in the minutes of this evening as well.
Okay.
I oftentimes have to temper my speech and cadence because I realize I speak too quickly sometimes for our recording assistants.
So that is the minutes of the 13th, November 13th.
That's correct, sir.
Okay.
So we can approve those minutes as better
Amended.
defined? Make a motion to approve the minutes of November 13th, 2018 as amended. How's that?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Jim, are you still with us?
Still there?
Okay. See, was Jim here at this particular one? Yes, he
Yeah.
was. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, as a point of clarification as well, I think it matters not if a member was present for the meeting. I did confer with the Attorney General's office, and they indicated that members vote on minutes for their form and legality, and not so much even just the bare content, as there's many different ways to take minutes and reflect the content, the context of the events. The AG's office's opinion is that absent members can still vote to approve minutes.
Okay. So, we'll do a roll call vote.
Will I?
Jen, I.
Bruce, aye.
Kevin, aye.
And Jim? Jim, aye. All right, and do we have the next round of minutes here? Let's see, we have November 27th. All right.
I was good with them. I'll make a motion to approve as written.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
I still need more minutes. that okay?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm
I
sorry.
didn't see these before the meeting.
Sure, just take a moment and,
You never know how many times Stephen used Carver instead of Carver.
That was the email I sent to you.
We got a ton of signing to do we not?
oops.
Many duties that we have, furniture repair guy.
Yep, that one's gonna. Safe.
Excuse me.
No.
I'm a slow reader with this.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were waiting for me.
No, there's a lot on this one
Well,
page.
you're elected. I don't mind if they wait for you.
The next meeting is the 8th, right?
Yes.
Yes, our next meeting date will be January 8th. And you will be with us.
I will probably be still frozen,
Oh,
but I
you-
will be.
You're going up to, will you
Well,
be back from
I'm not
Alaska?
coming back until the 5th.
The 5th?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'll be gone for quite a while.
Seeing your pictures.
Should I hand you this
Oh,
one?
they-
Take notes.
I actually have some of my Viking adventure too.
So I would like to see those as
Arvid, the young man I befriended from Denmark, sent me booklets of the.
Okay, guys, I'm good. Thank you for your patience.
So, Will made a motion. Do I have a second?
I think Kevin might have.
Oh, Kevin seconded, okay. So we'll do a roll call vote to approve the minutes of, see, this was November 27th of 2018.
Will I?
Jen, I.
Bruce, aye.
Kevin, I.
And Jim?
Jim, I.
And Jim, aye. Okay. So our next meeting date is January 8th. We will return here for the year of 2019.
Wow.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a motion. Jim seconded it. That's great. And, okay, roll call vote.
Will I?
Jen, I.
Bruce, aye.
Kevin, I.
And Jim?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that's it.
Adjourn, 9:04.
Thank you, and good evening.